Where does it come from? Do you just print it?
As a central bank, we have the ability to create money.
Hey everyone, how's it going? Hope you enjoyed the new intro there. Just trying to still figure things out a little bit. Today is August 27th, 2021, and today we're going to talk about a whole bunch of things in the market, but we're going to start off first with a bit of a market recap as to where the stock market indexes went, what the Fed's saying, hence the intro, and then we're going to dive into some really interesting stories today. Some of them not stock market related, but we're going to talk about OnlyFans. If you don't know what that is, you're going to learn. And how this basically pornography subscription individual creator service decided to ban pornography, which is like 90% of their business, and then they're bringing it back and what that's all about. We're going to talk about the US dollar losing its reserve status potentially. This is a topic that comes up every once in a while, but I want to share a bit of an interview and an article from Jeffrey Gundlach. He's known as the Bond King. He's really experienced in that, and he talked on Yahoo, and we're going to kind of cover what he said there. And then we're going to talk a little bit about just a personal thing, non-finance related, I guess, as well, just about COVID-19 and traveling. And this is specifically for Canadians, but I'll cover it for Americans too, because I am planning on doing a lot of traveling next year and this year. I wanted to share with you guys some of the nightmares of traveling, even if you're vaccinated, some of the stuff you're going to have to go through in terms of testing and getting all this stuff done. And yeah, maybe just a bit of a, informational thing in case you plan on doing any traveling in the next few months. And then lastly, not a ton happened in the crypto space this week. You know, there's acquisitions here and there, but the biggest news was Visa purchased a CryptoPunk, which is an NFT for $150,000. So the age of just getting, Bitcoin on your balance sheet is over. It's now about NFTs as well. Cool. All right. And apologies if this kind of lags a little bit. My camera's been a bit off today. But we'll start with the first story here, which is, apologies for that. So this week, the Dow rallied, S&P 500, NASDAQ, all driven to all-time highs. I think this week, I like to kind of count how many all-time highs we get per week. I think we got 4 all-time highs this week. We got one little pullback, one little spike in the VIX, but it didn't really go anywhere, all things considered. So, U.S. stocks advanced further Friday afternoon after the S&P index and the NASDAQ composite indexes rose to intraday records following Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell's remarks at the Jackson Hole Central Bankers Symposium. So if you don't know, every year central bankers get together and they powwow and they talk about the state of the economy and they kind of forecast what they plan to do. And these conversations with Fed chairmen are so heavily scrutinized. Every little tiny bit of phrasing comes under the wire. The market reacts in real time to recordings and live things that come out of these symposiums. So they're interesting and they're kind of important to watch as kind of indications as to what the Federal Reserve is thinking. Just to go back a little bit, the biggest topic in the news about potentially ending this bull market cycle is tapering, and that's when the Federal Reserve stops buying bonds to kind of prop up the liquidity in the market and kind of provide like a bit of a safe haven hedge. So there's this tapering expression. They've been buying $120 billion of bonds every single month, I believe, and they're talking about bringing that down slowly and gradually to kind of stop doing that. Still keeping the interest rates to zero, but cutting down the tapering. And so this conversation is probably the most important thing to watch for when it comes to Fed chairmen, whether it's Jerome Powell or others making remarks, because this is going to largely, I think, indicate where the market goes over the next few years or months. And so you're going to have black swan events, maybe COVID 2022, something crazy happens in the market. But again, I think the biggest driving factors for the market are what is the Fed doing with their balance sheet and what are they doing with interest rates. And these symposiums kind of give you a little bit of insight into what their thoughts are. So, Fed Chair Jerome Powell, in his closely followed speech Friday, said he advocated tapering the Fed's purchase of $80 billion of treasuries and $40 billion of mortgage-backed securities each month, but was vague about a timetable. It was viewed, I think, by many as a dovish speech. In his view, the market will probably become bumpier amid uncertainty surrounding the Delta variant of the coronavirus and as economic and corporate earnings growth slow from an unsustainable pace in the recovery from the pandemic to a very respectable pace. So we've obviously seen a whipsaw in earnings. Everything was shut down and then things jerked back, and now we're trying to find this kind of stabilization in the market as well. Fed Chair Powell said the U.S. Central Bank will carefully assess incoming data and the evolving risks, giving them some wiggle room before a meeting on the 21st and 22nd to digest further evidence of the health of the economy including a coming jobs report for August. So, in essence, I watched a little bit of the speech. The thing really to watch out for is he said when it comes to rates, there's only two factors that are going to change his position on these 0% interest rates that we're having right now. And that is, one, if inflation gets out of control, but in their eyes, in their view, watching CPI, they don't think it is. They think it's transitory. Transitory used to mean 2 to 3 months, and now it could be 6 to 9 months. My prediction is interest rates do not become a concern for the Federal Reserve if they start dipping under 5% again. If they start dipping under 5% at any time, I think before the end of the year, and they start trending downwards for more than a month or two in a row, I think the Fed's going to say, look, it was just like a little blip on the radar. It's not a big deal. There's a lot of people that think inflation is going to continue staying at above 5%. The CPI is going to stay above 5, month in, month out. And I think that's the most important thing to watch for. If that happens, if the CPI does continue to go up, and I can't predict these things, then I think you'll start to see the Fed say, well, we need to have another reason for not raising the interest rates. And so the other reason for not raising the interest rates is this thing that the Fed calls full employment. And full employment, we don't know what that really means, but in their technical definition, it's basically when full employment is when all available labor resources are being used in the most efficient way possible. So what does that mean, right? We can see what the unemployment rate is here of the US, and I'm bringing up a lot of charts and stuff, but my point is to kind of show you that all of these statements they all have goalposts that can be moved around. And so it's really hard. Like if anybody actually knew how to predict where interest rates were going, I think it would be reflected in the market. And the market, that's why I really like following charts, is the market is telling you that like nothing is really changing or is going to change. This year has been one of the most insanely bullish years of all time in the S&P 500. It's been every 1 in 3 days, or almost 1 in 2 days, has been a new all-time high in the S&P 500. And so the Fed says, look, if employment isn't hitting our target of full employment, whatever that number is, then we're just simply not going to raise rates. That has to be a prerequisite, or inflation has to get crazy. It's one or the other or both, right? So for them, I don't know what full employment means, because we had full employment right before the coronavirus, and the rates were basically at 1, and they were actually on their way down to 0 before the coronavirus pandemic. They were lowering the rates while full employment, or while employment rates were lowering as well. So, full employment, I don't know what that is when it comes to the Fed. But you can see, and you can't really see it too well in this chart, but rates did start going down before the pandemic, and it had nothing to do with, people being locked up in homes. So, my bit take on that. Anyways, so there's a lot of people seeing, obviously, what's going on with inflation and CPI, and the debate is, again, still, is this stuff going to continue? Is it transitory? We don't know. We don't get answers, but if you're going to be trading this stuff or investing in it, just know that, look out for the black swan events should they happen, but let the market dictate how big of an event something is. And again, I'm not going to dive into charts like crazy here, but the way that I tell that something serious is on the horizon is likely when we actually get a confirmed lower low on the daily time frame on one of these charts here. We haven't had a daily lower high and a lower low on the S&P 500, I don't believe, since March of this year. There was a little brief correction. And then if you look on the weekly, nothing. We haven't even begun consolidating anything on the weekly. So again, I've been saying on this show, I'm looking for a hedge. I don't think the market's going to go up forever, but when I purchase a hedge, I'm fully aware that it could go to 0, and the likelihood of it going to 0 is probably pretty high. My reason for doing it, markets like to consolidate in September. I'm just going by statistical odds. Markets like to consolidate in September. I don't know why, but they just do. And if I'm wrong, and that doesn't happen this year, it's not sweat off my back. I'll make it back, right? So in terms of everything else, I don't think there's much reason to get rid of stocks or anything right now, or to look overly bearish on the market. But if you are feeling that way, just get a little hedge, get your little insurance play, and you're good to go. Next, let's talk about something fun, because all this stuff with the stock market, it's boring, right? Like even cryptocurrency at this point is just like, it's grinding up as well. we want to see a new all-time high with Bitcoin, but everything is just on a grind up. It's like we're in this motion that will never really change. There has to be something that rattles the market. We thought this week on Thursday, what happened in Afghanistan with, a couple of troops being killed, like that might have been a big deal. And the market dumped for like 2 minutes, and now it's back to all-time highs again. So don't look at every little event and think, oh, this could be the big one, this could be the big one. Give it some time, because these things are going to unravel over the course of days and weeks and months. They're not going to happen in a flash, in a split second, and you're not going to miss your time to sell or your bearish entry or whatever, if that's your bias. So okay, so this hasn't anything to do with the market, but I want to talk about this because I think there's an opportunity here. And what I like to talk about on this channel and this show is how cryptocurrencies can solve problems with traditional industries. And I think the whole story around OnlyFans, and I'll just summarize it too, is a really good example of how cryptocurrencies could really help with certain economies where banks are kind of reigning king as to, who gets to have money here or there. So earlier this week, OnlyFans banned sexually explicit content after pressure from financial partners. And basically, what they announced is that by October 1st of this year, they would ban all pornography and kind of sexual content creators on the platform because of consistency with their banking partners. And they weren't completely open about this. They said, oh, we can't do this because, we're not getting certain things transacted. But the biggest thing with OnlyFans, obviously, is that like 90% of the transactions are women or guys selling their nude imagery. And for lots of money too. Like there was a Disney star named Bella Thorne who sold like not even like a fully nude photo of herself for $1 million. She sold it for like $100 a pop. She raised $1 million in under, I think, 12 hours. So this platform has just exploded during the pandemic and a lot of like people who are not even celebrities are using this too. It's just like a way of creating side income. So it's become like a pretty massive part of the economy in the US and abroad. They say that they have 130 million users, which is massive. Almost all this was gained in the last year and a half, and 2 million creators who have collectively earned around $5 billion. So don't underestimate porn. It's a massive industry, even though you can't buy it publicly anywhere or invest in it. It's a massive, massive industry. And so what they basically said is, look, banks are, they don't want us to do this. The CEO came out and said, look, we've had wire transfers at JP Morgan Chase, BNY Mellon, and they don't want to do business with us anymore because we're dealing with pornography. It looks bad for them, and we don't know what to do, so we have to ban this, basically. So a lot of outcry later from Twitter and other people around the internet basically came and said, look, this is stupid. Like, no one's going to use your platform if you take away pornography. They were trying to say, oh, we're going to try and just be like a media streaming company. It's not going to work, obviously. And then looky here, a day or about 6 days later, OnlyFans says it has suspended a plan to ban sexually explicit content following an outcry from its creators and advocates for sex workers. The subscription site said in a prepared statement on Wednesday that the planned ban was no longer required due to banking partners' assurances that OnlyFans can support all genres of creators and declined to answer further questions. OnlyFans had said last Thursday that it would ban explicit content starting October 1st, blaming policies of banks and payment processors for the policy change. Yada, yada, yada. And the point is all this, is that a lot of these OnlyFans creators, there's 2 million of them on this platform that probably rely on it for either a good chunk of their passive income or their full-time income. We're basically like, okay, well, this is crazy. Like, you're kicking us out, and we made your platform what it is. You're taking 20% from us, and now you're just saying like, well, good luck out there. And they were really, really upset about this whole ordeal. And there were some rumors too that they were trying to distance themselves from pornography because they couldn't find venture capital to help them, bring their company to the next level as well. And we know too that there aren't public, pornography related companies. I would say that would be a really great investment several years ago, but who knows? I think pornography is still probably a really good place to invest long term. So they said, look, we can't do this because of our banks. And now they're saying, oh, don't worry. I guess our banks maybe are going to be accommodative. What I see out of this whole thing is this article from TechCrunch that has kind of summarized this, and I'll post it in the link below, about how the cryptocurrency industry has an opportunity of a lifetime here. And I'll kind of elaborate my thoughts on it in particular. The point of cryptocurrency is to kind of allow this like decentralized, permissionless access to finance. And then you have the decentralized finance world, which is trying to just replicate all the different financial services like banks and savings accounts and maybe VC funds and lending and stuff as well on the cryptocurrency network so that you can have the full suite of financial services, again, without having to have the permission of anyone. So you're not going to have some prude at a bank tell you that you can't, invest in OnlyFans and things like that. I am surprised that OnlyFans hasn't embraced cryptocurrency, and I would only assume that part of this has to do with regulation. And they're worried, if we start saying we're going to be a crypto platform that, people aren't going to invest in us anymore, they'll see that as a liability maybe on our balance sheet, or they'll look at us as a crypto company. But you have other platforms like, the Pornhubs of the world, which are accepting payments in cryptocurrency and have pretty much just said, okay, we don't process credit cards anymore. If you want to subscribe, you got to pay in Bitcoin or Ether or whatever, or Tether. And I think there's an opportunity of a lifetime for OnlyFans to pioneer and push that, and especially with their creators. And I would say especially with their creators, because all of their creators are likely in the demographic of millennials or, even like Gen Z, who are familiar with cryptocurrencies. Everyone understands MetaMask. Everyone, probably, I would say there's a good chance that a lot of creators on this platform have a Coinbase account as well. And so if they became a portal where they were taking cuts of cryptocurrency donations, and then the creators would still have to go through an extra step to cash out through Coinbase or Binance or another exchange, they could bypass these banks blocking their wire exchanges, and they wouldn't have to worry about this kind of variable factor because they would be able to accept things in cryptocurrencies. And in addition to that, they could keep some of that crypto on their balance sheet as well. Yeah, I think it's an opportunity, and I wonder if they're going to go down that road eventually of doing it. But there's becoming this kind of notion, especially with El Salvador making Bitcoin a legal tender, that Bitcoin is just a good savings account. So what people might do is, let's just say you have an OnlyFans account, you want to charge people $10 a month for your nude photos. You can pay out in Bitcoin. You could have creators say, look, I'm just going to keep half in Bitcoin and then half cash out, right? Because it's a form of income for me. I don't have to, there's no margins involved. It's not quite a business. So I don't have to pay anyone to do all this. So I think there's a real opportunity there to pioneer this with crypto. And it's not unheard of as well. I'm trying to find an article on this, but basically pornography in, here we go. I'll pull this up really quick. I'll stop talking about porn in a second, guys. I know you don't want to hear about that all day. But I was reading this article back from 2010 about how the Apple Store had banned pornography way back when the iPad came out. And one of the first applications to come out was basically streaming pornography on the iPad. And so this was actually functioning before YouTube and video apps were. And you go back like 20 years ago, and some of the first internet sites, the first video streaming on the internet was pornography. It wasn't just like YouTube social media content sharing, it was pornography. And then when it comes to chat rooms, interactions too, like live streaming, before Twitch, like not much live streaming, right? Like that wasn't a thing. But you know who was doing it? People doing porn live streams. So there's something interesting about the porn industry pioneering technology. There's like a synergy between, I guess, the curiosity that people have around sex and doing new things with sex, and the curiosity that people have with doing things around technology, and there's that synergy there. And I think that processing payments through cryptocurrency and giving content creators the option to just save in them or use them, and then they don't have to ever worry about banks clamping down on them, because you have the other side of this too, which is like OnlyFans, they have their banking problems, but if you are doing a service like this and you have a bank and they're finding out that like all your payments are coming from OnlyFans, they might say, look, maybe we should take a look at this person over here. Maybe we don't want to have a client that's doing this. Or like, what if this client says something about our bank on social media or Twitter? Maybe we should not be a client with her. And it's just like, in this world of censorship and people wanting to be really careful about the lines that they walk, banks have so much power, because if they pull away your service and they censor you, you're done. It sucks to be censored on Facebook and Twitter, but if your bank censors you, like, good luck. That just completely upends and destroys your life. So yeah, lots of potential there to do something cool with cryptocurrency. That's all I'm going to say on that matter. Next up, we're going to talk about Jeffrey Gundlach here. He is the bond king, and he's talked a lot about the US dollar potentially losing its reserve status. So I'm going to share this video down below as well so you can take a look. But he's been saying for a while that what the US is doing with all their central bank policies of the 0% interest rates, of the bond buying like crazy, and what they're seeing with their economic growth. He just thinks that like the reserve status is coming to an end, and I think a lot of people said, okay, well, the U.S. is probably in a pretty good shape going into the pandemic. Even the naysayers were saying it's not going to happen overnight, the U.S. dollar losing its reserve status. But I think a lot of people now are saying, look, China has recovered from this pandemic a lot quicker because of social planning, and their production lines are more efficient than ours, and their military is growing, and they've gotten over it. Their economy has gotten over it for the most part. So in a world that is moving so fast, having a year ahead of your enemy is something else. And I think this idea of the US dollar losing reserve currency status is going to happen a lot sooner than maybe some people might have predicted. Maybe some people thought 2030s, 2040s. Gundlach is saying, even by 2028, the Chinese economy could be bigger than the US. And when a foreign country's economy is bigger, then there becomes this conversation of like, why are we using the US dollar if they're not the world's biggest superpower anymore, right? That's kind of inherently the attributes of reserve currency is having usually the biggest army, usually the biggest economy. And so the Chinese economy is getting there. And some other things that he talked about too is that they have a culture of saving in China. So the gold medalists of saving, household income and household savings are much higher there in China compared to their income than they are in the States. They're big believers in gold in China as well. And so what he said here is, so we're running our economy in a way that's almost like we're not interested in maintaining global reserve currency status or the largest military or global, call it, superiority or control. And so as long as we continue to run these policies and we're running them more and more aggressively, we're not pulling back on them in any way. We are looking at a roadmap that is clearly headed towards the US dollar losing its sole reserve currency status. So it's interesting. I follow Michael Saylor a lot. His idea of the U.S. Maintaining the reserve currency status has to do with adopting Bitcoin, because he says that if the dollar can be backed by something sound and we can kind of create that trust again, and every U.S. dollar is banked by some amount of Bitcoin in a bank, then that's kind of how you can reclaim reserve currency status. But otherwise, if we just have endless monetary policy, printing and doing this and reacting to whatever, then you deflate the currency, the dollar loses value relative to the euro or to the yen, and people don't desire it as much anymore. So there's some technical analysis here too that he's talked about. He said that it peaked in 2017. The dollar is about 10% lower, and that you can see that on the chart as well. If I go to the DXY here, that's the US dollar currency index. So the number here is just what is the dollar worth compared to other currencies. You can see that basically, we kind of did have this double top back 2016, 2017, and a very key level here to watch for the DXY is probably about 88. Should that level break, who knows? I don't think it's going to be an immediate reaction, but I think what a lot of people are saying is, look, it's just another sign that the dollar might just be resuming its, or losing its luster. And you can actually even see here on the monthly, the dollar looks like it's double topped at 93 again. So the dollar is kind of in a bit of a downtrend relative to other currencies. So yeah, and another thing too that he mentioned is that if you look at the stock market, and I can't compare the charts, but if you look at the stock market, it's correlated with the Federal Reserve expanding its balance sheet. We kind of have this like straight linear, almost looking line up on the stock market. It's done 100% since the bottom of the pandemic. It's new all-time high every day. And the Fed balance sheet looks just like that chart as well. And so when that starts leveling off, I think there is obviously going to be some momentum taken out of the stock market. Not only because people don't feel that their bonds are being bought up too, but it's just like, okay, well, we don't have the backstop as much anymore. And that's what all this tapering conversation is about. So I'll share some more articles in here. I can't go over the whole thing. Don't want to take all your guys' time up. But I do want to cover something that's kind of important, maybe not for finance and market stuff, but again, for all you guys who are planning on traveling, because I think traveling is a big part of our economy and our well-being and our happiness. If you are in Canada, there's different rules in the US, but if you are in Canada, there's a couple really important things to note here. And maybe I'll just make the camera a big screen because I remember some of these things. So here's an example. I'm going to Las Vegas sometime in October, and I've already bought my plane ticket. I already got my hotel there. Just going for fun, gonna blow all my crypto money at a casino or just eat a bunch of good food and get fat. One of those two things. But I was thinking, okay, I got my vaccinations. I'm vaxxed. I got the 5G chip. And really, I only did it for traveling. You know, it's not that I doubt the science. I just felt like I didn't need it before. But, you know, if I want to travel, I want to go to El Salvador as well. Later, I'm going to do a whole video on that. You got to have the shots, and I'm not going to fight it anymore because I want to get on with my life. However, it's not that easy, and I'll tell you why. When you leave Canada to go into another country, that country will have an entry requirement test. And so there will be a certain window that you need to be tested and get your results in for whether or not you're positive for coronavirus, even if you've been vaccinated. So vaccinations obviously don't mean that you are immune to COVID. And so when you're going to the US, they take almost every type of test there. So there's a thing called a PCR test. That's kind of like the bigger one. I don't know the scientific name of it. And then there's the antigen test, which is that quick one that you can take. I don't know if you have to put the thing up the nose. Maybe it's just like a spit in a tube type of thing. But that one takes 20 minutes and it's a lot cheaper. And what you do is in a 72-hour window between the time of your flight and the 3 days beforehand, you have to take this test. And if you test negative, you're good to go. If you test positive, you're staying at home, bucko, and you better get a change of flight. When you're going to the US from Canada, the antigen test is acceptable. And this can be purchased in Canada or anywhere else for, I think, around $100. So just keep that in mind. If you're traveling, you got one thing. You got a $100 expense of just getting your test done. And I don't know when these things will change, but my guess is that as long as COVID is a thing, they're going to want to just test people before they go into different countries, regardless of the vaccine. And they've had these regulations in place for a while. So you got to take a test to do this. It's got to come out negative. You're going to spend $100. If you have a family of 4, you might as well just add another $400 to $500 on your plane ticket travel budget. Then coming back, here's the tricky part, is the same deal coming back into Canada, you have to get a test, but they don't accept the antigen test in Canada. They think that the quick test is not legit enough, maybe the results aren't that reliable, so they make you take the full PCR test, and that one costs about $250, so it's a very expensive test compared to the antigen test. So Americans will take the antigen test, Canadians will not. So if you are from outside of Canada and you want to travel, do not take the antigen test. There was a story of a woman who took one, came into Canada, and she's a nurse, I think, and she got fined $5,000 because she took the wrong test, and she's trying to fight that now. So don't take the wrong test, and that's number one. Number two thing about this is there's a solution to this, and this boggles my mind. In the US, you can get a PCR test at Walgreens, CVS, and I believe maybe Rite Aid. There's like 3 kind of pharmacy chains, and they will give you tests for free. However, you're not guaranteed to get it within 2 days. So you need to take your test within 3 days, and you need to have your results within those 3 days before you take your flight, either a QR code or certificate or something. So you can get these tests done for free in the United States. You cannot get these tests done for free if you're going from Canada to the US. They don't give out free COVID tests in Canada for asymptomatic people, which is really weird to me. So tests galore in the US, place where they don't have, universal healthcare or, government paid for single payer healthcare, but testing is free. But there's a chance that if you do it, you might not get your test result on time. So in summary, tests both ways. They're going to cost you anywhere between both the tests. If you're doing them, and you're not getting them for free, they're going to cost you anywhere between like $350 to $400 per person. So just keep that in mind when you're traveling. It's going to be more testing costs than your plane ticket if you're going to Vegas. And then you can't take the antigen test coming back into Canada. You've got to take a legit one if you're coming back into Canada, but you can take one leaving Canada going to the United States. I don't know about the other countries. And all your results have to be within 72 hours. Go even a minute outside that window, or like 2 hours or 3 hours outside that window, and you could get fined. So that's annoying. And don't you just love bureaucracy? They make everything fantastic. But yeah, just thought I'd let you guys know about that. Last story on the list here is... Ooh, sorry. I'm just getting used to my whole setup again still. Last story is... everyone's talking about Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Now we're talking about NFTs on the balance sheet, or just for fun. Who knows? $150,000 to Visa is not a lot of money, but Visa took their first step into NFTs with their CryptoPunk purchase for almost $150,000. CryptoPunks, if you don't know, were these I don't know, these super pixel emojis that somehow took off. They're one of the early NFTs, and they blew up. And I think like the floor price, which is like the lowest any of these is selling for, is about $100,000 now. So Visa bought one of them. Trying to see if there's a picture of it. It was like a little dude with a mohawk. Visa CryptoPunk. Oh yeah, there you go. Visa bought an image of this that was minted on the blockchain for $150,000. So I haven't done a video on NFTs. I don't think I am, because I'm still learning about it. And you know, everyone was in a rush to make like, what is an NFT video? And I thought like, well, I want to like kind of get a slice of what the point of it all is before I make a video giving my whole opinion on it. But essentially an NFT is a non-fungible token, which is like a cryptocurrency, but there's a limited amount and there's an individual amount that you can own, kind of like owning art. So art is non-fungible because if you're buying, you know, one painting, that's it, and it's kind of unique. Where else one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin no matter who owns it. You know, there's nothing defining ownership of a Bitcoin. So they bought CryptoPunk 7610 on August 19th, and about 90 other CryptoPunks were snapped up in the next hour for $20 million. And then, yeah, there's just been like, just this one type of NFT alone has done about $100 million in transactions over the last few days because of Visa getting into it. And it just lends more validation to the space. So if you know about NFTs and you're cynical about it, one of the things that you might say is that, well, this is stupid. They're just buying a JPEG, right? And I look at that argument as too simplistic and kind of stupid. It's like saying like, well, art is pointless. I don't need to buy the Mona Lisa, or the Mona Lisa has no value because I can just buy a print of it, right? Sure, you can copy and paste a JPEG, and then you have a digital file on your computer and you can maybe claim ownership, but it's not the same. When you own an NFT, it's connected to a ledger that is basically permanent on the internet through usually the Ethereum network or Solana or one of them. And so it verifies your ownership of this asset. And an NFT has a bunch of other functions too, potentially. You can buy NFTs that are interoperable with games, one-of-a-kind items for video games, or maybe you want to show off something. You can put it in like an app that kind of lets you display it, and only the ones that you own, and you can validate that you own. And of course, you can't sell a JPEG. People are willing to pay for these things. So you might be cynical and say, look, NFTs are just a big bubble and a big scam. But what I say is maybe there's some truth to that, but the market is still paying up for them. And Visa's buying them. And unless, you know, Visa's here to pump and dump and scam everyone, and you might think that, this industry is not going away. It's just there's too many people who value these things, and there's people who have bought these things. And there are people who have a lot of money who are buying these things, and they're not going to sell it. One of the great things about NFTs is it's actually a fantastic way to get rid of all your cryptocurrency without having to go to a bank. So if you want to buy a punk, you can now diversify your crypto portfolio into owning a piece of art, right? Just like if you were a stockbroker and you made a bunch of money and you're like, okay, I want to pull some out of the market, I want to buy a piece of art now. So you can do this in the digital world too. So all this is just we digitize money, and now we're digitizing art, and we're digitizing art in a different way. But the way that people look at art is not just a copy that you can just send around of a picture or a drawing. Art is behest from the owner onto behest of the creator onto the next owner. And so that's what NFTs have done, is they've taken that idea of like you can paint something originally and you can sell it to someone, and that seller can speculate and sell it to another person, and maybe that artist becomes more popular and their works become more in demand. This is a real industry, and to play it off I think is foolish. And sure, it might seem like a bubble, but so did Bitcoin a few years ago as well, right? It didn't seem like it was a thing that would be that important or store value, because it was just a thing that was just created anonymously on an internet forum, and now everyone uses it and everyone talks about it and everyone uses it as a store of value. So there you go. Don't blow off NFTs. That's all I have to say. But yeah, that's it. That's everything for the show today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We're going to dive into the live chat if you guys have said anything. Awfully quiet today, but that's okay. Yeah, thanks so much for watching. If you guys have any charts, I'll stick on here for like 2 minutes or so. I'll go over a couple, but yeah, I might have mentioned in the Discord as well. If you're not part of the Discord, you can join in the description down below. that I am getting some VIX calls. And again, these are just a small hedge. I don't look at it as a big thing where I am, going all in thinking that the market is going to crash. But we keep getting these little spikes up. And my danger line to watch, I think, is about 25 or 26 on the VIX. The VIX has kind of floored out here. So I think purchasing long-dated calls anywhere around 15 to 14, the only thing that you're going to suffer over the next few months is decay. The value of them, VIX is not going to be going down below 10. It historically has gone maybe down to 12. We still haven't hit the low levels of like 2020 before the pandemic, but even those levels were 12. So taking a bite here at 16 is not the worst thing in the world. And so that's about it. SPY continues its infinite grind upwards. Again, this pattern works until it doesn't, but buying under the daily EMA 26 whenever you have a chance, great buying opportunity, and you seem to be getting these quick rebounds every single time as well. So that's a possible setup. But yeah, that is everything for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I have another video coming out, I think tomorrow or Monday. And then I have that mining video I've been yapping about for a month. It took a lot of research, and I'm also good at procrastinating, so it took a while to send. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will not be here next week to live stream as I will be on a road trip, but I will be back on September 10th. So 2 weeks from now, and we'll do another show. If you have any requests for stories, you can comment down below or leave a message in the chat or leave a message in the Discord, even better, and I'll check it out and we'll talk about it on the show. And if you want to come up and talk about anything yourself on the show, you give me a message as well. We'll have some guests on the show. Who knows? But yeah, take care, have fun, and I'll see you guys in 2 weeks.